Welcome to the Black Duck Revival Podcast. I'm your host, Jonathan Wilkins. I'm excited to have you join me as I speak with a fascinating collection of folks, all of whom have in common that they've made a way for themselves by finding an intersection between thoughtful consideration and the tactile work of getting their hands dirty. This is an examination of intention, capability, and craft. It's where philosophy meets the blue-collar work ethic and where I find real value. Hey. Welcome back to the Black Duck Revival Podcast, folks. This week, I'm elated to tell you that I'm joined by Thomas Campbell of Asheville, North Carolina. Thomas is a metal worker, a fabricator, and an artist of phenomenal talent. He's also one of my best friends. I've known him since he was 17 years old, and I love this guy. It's an absolute honor to be friends with him. He's the kind of dude that it makes you feel good that he considers you a friend. He's also one of the most fun people to talk shit with that I've ever met, and I'd say thus far, this is my favorite podcast to date. And I think that's because I got to spend a couple days with Thomas some weeks back. You might have seen it on Instagram. We built a smoker together, or more aptly said, Thomas built a smoker while I handed him things and took pictures. And I feel like that happening was a testament to our friendship and how much we care about each other. And I think that comes through on this podcast. So I would invite you to listen to this episode recorded in Asheville, North Carolina a few weeks back with my good friend, artist, metal worker, fabricator, Thomas Campbell. All right, today I'm here in Asheville, North Carolina. I'm with my good longtime friend, Thomas Campbell. Thomas is a fifth-generation iron worker. He's a fabricator dealing in the medium of metal. He's a welder, and he's an artist. And I've been up here visiting him. And, truthfully, primarily I came up here for Thomas to help, which just ended up being Thomas building me this really beautiful, phenomenal offset smoker. But we're sitting here in Thomas's shop. It's a shared workspace with Thomas and his workplace mate, Andrew, both being people that fabricate and work in the medium of metal. And it's honestly probably the coolest shop I've been in thus far. All sorts of really neat structural elements. It's a place that feels like it was made to facilitate art and, just kind of human expression and growth. But anyway, Thomas, thank you. First off, man, thank you very much for joining me on the podcast, man.
Yeah, no problem.
And so I would like to kind of introduce how we know each other. We've known each other for, probably 17 or 18 years?
Yeah, probably right at 18, really.
Yeah. Thomas and I both went to the same college, a small liberal arts school in Central Arkansas. And I actually started school with his older sister, Lydia, who's a few years older than him. But my first introduction to Thomas was when he was either in his junior or senior year of college or high school, and he came and did like a school visit. And there was some hanging out, and there were some large sandwiches involved. And then Thomas ended up, like a year later, coming to the school, and we've just kind of been friends ever since. And it's a friendship I really appreciate because it's really comfortable, and it has not ever been reliant on immediate proximity to each other. And I think Thomas said to me the other day that we can go 6 or 7 or 8 months, honestly, we've probably gone a year or so without talking.
Yeah.
But it always feels comfortable, and we always slip back into the same routines of, playfully giving each other a hard time. But I've known what Thomas was doing for a long time, and I've been to art shows that he's done, and I kind of saw the progression when we were in our 20s, like hanging out at the bar, and saw Thomas go from like this history major to working in his family's iron shop, and like really developing like blue collar skills, which is kind of antithetical to this liberal arts environment that both of us came out of. And I always felt kind of a kindred relationship to Thomas because of that. Because we were in our crew, we were both kind of the two guys that chose to do blue collar work intentionally. But anyway, man, I'd love it if you could maybe just kind of start, maybe 10 or 11 years ago when we were both out of college. We were living in Little Rock. I was playing music a lot, and we were hanging out in the bar. And yeah, I remember when you started working at your family's iron shop, and I just have this distinct memory of you coming into the bar, like dirty, kind of sooty, wearing very familiar, like those blue kind of Dickies, and like this shirt with your name on it. And I was usually in there just dirt all over me from doing landscaping or something. But yeah, man, maybe just kind of start there. How did you go from getting out of college to what you're doing now?
Yeah, so when I graduated college, I studied history. It was kind of the one thing in school that I developed a pretty sincere interest in after taking one class, and I felt pretty aimless in college, but that felt like something I could kind of devote 3 years to study and get a degree in. But I never looked at it as something that I wanted to do post college. It was more kind of a way to this end goal of a degree, but something that piqued my interest, improved my writing skills and my reading skills. But I always wanted to work with my hands. I'd take on summer jobs throughout high school and college that were like labor heavy, and I always I got pleasure out of that, and I enjoyed, using my body and feeling tired at the end of the day, and like I kind of got the day, And so when I got out of college, I knew I wanted to try to learn a trade if possible, and I initially wanted to get familiar with woodworking, but I didn't really have an in anywhere with that. But what I did have was my mother's side of the family has I think it's about 136-year-old steel fabrication business that my great-great-grandfather Julius Bimberg started late 1800s. And
is that who's in this photo right here?
Yeah, that's who's in the photo. And that business has been passed down through generations, and now my uncles run that business. And so I needed a job. I felt like that was an opportunity for me to work with my hands and learn a trade. And so I called my uncle shortly after graduating and said, "Hey, I'm looking for a job. I don't have any metalworking experience, but is this something you'd be willing to? Would you be willing to take me? Would you be willing to take me on as one of your employees?" And he said, "Yeah, come mow the lawn." And I said, "All right, I'll see you Monday." So I started out working at this business, doing yard work, maintaining the shop yard, and slowly kind of worked my way into the shop, doing menial tasks, and from that just grew my skill set and became an iron worker. It took a few years before I felt comfortable claiming that as an identity, but when I did, I felt really proud of that, and having that familial tradition tied into it makes it that much better for me. So that's kind of how I got into metalworking, and I worked that job for almost probably about 7.5 years. And that I view as kind of my main education. That was, and just to give some detail, that is a large industrial steel fabrication shop. It started as a blacksmith shop. Through generations and modernization, morphed into a fabrication shop. And we did a lot of work for power plants and granite quarries. Everything was being moved around the shop on a 10-ton ceiling crane. Big, big, big work. And that's what I cut my teeth on. Yeah, so that's kind of where it started for me.
Yeah, so man, there's like 10 different things tangents I want to take off of that. And some of this I almost feel like I'm cheating because I know a lot about you and we talk about this stuff a lot.
Yeah.
But something that we have both have kind of understood to be part of our identities is this devotion or this appreciation to manual labor.
Mm-hmm.
And I think both of us find nobility in that.
Yeah.
And you were talking about you liked working these summer jobs where you were tired at the end of the day. So I do want to get into some of the specifics. I mean, Thomas has the best stories ever about working at this shop, and he does the best impersonations of these fellas that work at the shop. And I totally get it because I've spent a good portion of the last 15 years working in like blue collar environments in Central Arkansas. And I don't know these guys, but I know these guys.
Right.
But man, why do you find value in that work, in working with your hands and not just working with your hands, but I really connect with the idea of being physically tired at the end of the day. And I know exactly what you're talking about. Just a couple days ago, we were talking about when you're just using a sledge all day long and you wake up in the morning and your hands are kind of like cramped into this claw.
Locked. Yeah.
Yeah. And you're probably one of the only people I know you're the only person I went to college with that understands that. Mm-hmm. So why was that something that you were not only willing to endure, but you kind of sought?
That's a good question. I think there's agency in it for me. There's this kind of tangible factor to labor, and especially skilled labor. No, I shouldn't say that. Any form of labor, I think. There's this tangible aspect of it where you may start at the beginning of the day, whether you're digging a ditch or building a big conveyor truss or framing a house. You see that progress at the end of the day. Mm-hmm. And that progress comes from your work and your work and your commitment to that work and your skills. And, every day is different in that one day you might make a bunch of headway. And the next you might run into and this happens more in my shop than in my previous work. But with that comes critical thinking and problem solving that can be really rewarding as well. I think a lot of my desire to do a skilled form of labor out of college stems from, I've thought about this a lot actually. I think a lot of it stems from, I was an athlete growing up. Mm-hmm. I played a lot of sports, and that kind of dominated all my time from 4 years old till I graduated high school. And the daily commitment to practice, to trying to get better at that, to develop improvement, to push yourself to do the best you can. whether it's on an individual basis or a team basis, I love that. I love how can I improve this thing I'm doing? How can I take this job on even though I've done it 1,000 times? I'm going to take this on and practice it, and with the hope that something from it will click just that much more to increase my improvement at this skill that I've made my career, you know.
You're looking for an upward trajectory in your life.
I think so. I also just want to, whatever I'm committed, like, I've thought about this a lot working on the smoker, and I don't want this, I hope this doesn't come off as like any form of arrogance at all, but like, I can't half-ass stuff.
Mm-hmm.
If I commit to doing something, I'm going to try to do it the best I can. And that bites me sometimes, you know, but I guess there's so much room for that in what I do. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
And, you know, I go home plenty frustrated, but I also go home plenty of times feeling like I got that day, I earned it, and I'm going to chill now, you know,
yeah,
and rest for tomorrow. And, but yeah, I think the root of all this, a big part of it is growing up playing sports and that commitment to that devotion to that, because that's a craft too. That's a skill that you're developing.
Yeah, man, you've talked a lot about on this trip about craft.
Yeah.
And I'm into it, man. I mean, it's largely what this podcast is about.
Mm-hmm.
But what is your definition of craft?
Oh, shit. You know, it's funny. I have a mentor named Hoss Haley, and he's a sculptor in the North Carolina area. And this shop the shop I'm in is actually his old shop. So a lot of the, like, as you've noticed the last 3 days we've spent here, every part of this shop, every modification to the shop was clearly done with intention.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all Hoss. Most of 98% of this in here was Hoss's creation.
Incredibly well thought out.
Yeah, and Andrew Hayes is my shopmate. He's a sculptor, makes really beautiful work. We're benefiting from that. But what I'm getting at is we all kind of talk about this regularly when we're together, Andrew, Hoss, colleagues I have in the field. And I was having lunch with Hoss the other day, and he was making the point that I think we need to think about craft as less of a noun and more of a verb. And
Expound on that if you can.
Well, I think like, you know, I've thought about it quite a bit since we had the discussion, and like there's an activeness to craft. There's a, you know, craft is the end result of maybe a sculpture that I make is considered craft. But I think the craft, the real key element of it is for me, a big part of it is the process and that act of creating and the decisions that I make to get to the end result.
Do you think that craft is cumulative?
What do you mean?
I mean, okay, so let's take one of these. Thomas works in a lot of Thomas's work is, I mean, it's I think it's pretty obviously there's like an intersection of industry and art there.
Yeah, industry. My time in industry kind of drives the aesthetic of my work.
Yeah. And so, you know, you deal in vessels. a lot, right?
And volumes, yeah.
Yeah. And like that sphere and then the resulting shape that you made out of the negative space of that. So I guess what I'm trying to say is like you've got, I think especially with your work, you have all these pieces that go together, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that craft is found in the individual pieces, like the cutting of the pieces, the forming of the pieces, the tacking together until it's all one thing? Or is craft it in its entirety? Like all of that doing makes craft?
I think it's every bit of it, but I think those fine details, some of the best discoveries come from those little fine parts of the process that you might take for granted because you're so familiar with it, like running this saw. I run this saw all the time when I make sculpture, but I'm still trying to sort through new ways to use it,
Mm-hmm.
you know? I might, you know, you can aimlessly start making a piece of sculpture, and just by getting those gears turning, there's potential. There's this.
Oh man, that's huge.
There's potential, and that potential is what motivate. That potential is a motivator for me, and I think a lot of sculptors and craft folks and artists would agree. Like I think you're always in a way kind of chasing that potential.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's huge for me too, man. Is I talk a lot about like human potential
Mm-hmm.
and the realization of your fullest potential or
Mm-hmm.
possibility of it. And it's I'm in this weird conglomeration of like hunting and cooking and
Mm-hmm.
making things. Like it's this weird space that I exist in. But I feel like we've discovered even more overlap in how we look at stuff, over the last few days than we realized. Like when I was making those hush puppies last night, and you were getting tickled because I was kind of
doing the same thing with your work that you've been giving me shit for doing with my
I haven't
work.
been giving you shit, man. What are you talking about?
No, there's been moments where we're in the shop and I'm very particular with certain things, and there's been a few moments where I think maybe Jonathan certainly understands that, but I think to someone it can seem kind of ridiculous. It can seem kind of extreme to get so caught up in the tiniest little detail that you want to have right. Like, what's wrong with that just being a little off? Well, last night after we've been working on the smoker, Jonathan's frying up some catfish and hush puppies, and I can't remember what happened, but
it was cream corn. I couldn't find any cream corn.
He couldn't find any cream corn, and he kept apologizing for having to, come up with a substitute approach to cream corn, and I just kind of started laughing and said, "You see, we're not that different. Like this is you're doing the same thing about the cream corn as I would do with some element of this metalwork that we're doing on the smoker, because the cream corn is the way you do it."
Yeah, and there's a reason for it. And I think you're also speaking to...
It's all about the cream corn.
I think that we both... and I'm going to use this word intentionally, man. Like, I think there is a detestation of mediocrity and the acceptance of mediocrity. Like we were talking about, it seems like what the vast majority of people want to do is their goal in life is to find a comfortable plateau and then to like exist there,
Mm-hmm.
kind of waller themselves out a comfortable little nook.
Yeah.
And look, I'm definitely on the search for contentment,
Mm-hmm.
but I wouldn't be able to find that
in that form
just,
of life.
Yeah, and just staying still. I think it's appropriate sometimes, and I think there's absolutely a balancing act. And I think as your life changes, there is a reassessment of priorities.
Mm-hmm.
But, just like, I say this, man, like, what is that? I can't even remember the reference I was going to use, but just this idea of like someone that gets into a comfortable space where they make enough money, but they're never going to really get ahead, or they put some effort into getting skilled enough to just stay there. It's sad to me. It really does. It makes me sad that sometimes people that are capable of so much more choose to exist in that way out of fear or cowardice or laziness or maybe just a lack of introspection and realization about what they're actually capable of.
I think that more than anything is probably a big part of that. And I don't, like, people make their own choices. I'm not going to judge them for their own choices. And a lot of people are happy with that approach to living, and there are certainly days where I wonder if maybe I should have kept just the novelty of having a paycheck every week is amazing.
Yeah, big time.
It's amazing. And you, in a way, kind of take that for granted when you're getting it. And then when you just, like me deciding to go out on my own and leave my family's shop, there's honestly not a day that goes, well, not a week, I'd say, that goes by where I don't think about that.
And to be clear, like, I hope I'm not out of line saying this, but you were probably, if you wanted to maintain that, you were on a track to like be the next generation to be running that shop.
Yeah, that was made fairly clear to me. I have two cousins who work there who are in line to take it over. And I think, we all worked there about the same amount of time, and we were close. I loved them, and I think it would have been three of us,
Mm-hmm.
So I get that lifestyle. I long for it occasionally.
Sure.
And
we're not lamenting. I just want to make this clear. We're not lamenting working a job for a long time, or that kind of American dream of like getting a great blue collar job and keeping that. I think what we're saying,
any job.
Any job. I think what we're saying, or at least I'll speak for myself, what I'm saying is that I cannot be satiated without, like, in a macro sense, being able to step back. Like, I always say, I want my life to look like how they tell you a mutual fund should look. Mm-hmm. Like, if you look at it close up, you're going to have these big dips and valleys, but if you look at it over a long period of time, you have a steady upward trajectory of improvement of skill and refining your idea and your voice.
Yeah.
And
allowing yourself space to evolve.
Yeah, evolution is huge in this, for sure.
And I've been doing this on my own for close to 4 years now, and there's been some tough spots for sure, but I don't think I'd ever change it. Like, I love working for myself. I love doing what I do. It's really hard sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
It's long hours sometimes. But that kind of control that I have I've made a conscious decision to take control of my skills and use them the way that I want to use them. And at the end of the day, you know, I'm proud of that. And that's kind of what keeps me motivated and keeps me going, you know.
Man, and I think that attitude that you're referencing, like the first thing I just thought about was how that could absolutely be applied and often is to raising children even.
Oh, I'm sure.
You know, I think there's craft involved in that and being intentional about it and understanding you're going to make mistakes and finding a way to put yourself in. I mean, I do think that there's probably craft and artistry and real intentional thought that's put into raising children or
Sure.
or anything that you can find passion in.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, maybe I'm over explaining myself because I don't want it to sound like I don't respect, the working man, because I have an immense amount of respect for him.
Right.
I have an immense. Have you ever seen that movie? It's like a Brooklyn Story. That
No, I don't
Scorsese
think
film.
so.
Man, there's a great line in it with Robert De Niro, and basically his young son is kind of being lured away by the romance and like kind of sex appeal of the mobsters in this neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
And his dad, De Niro, plays this bus driver,
Mm-hmm.
and the kid says to him, he's like, this gangster's right. He was like, the working man's a sap. And De Niro says, no, man, it's easy. It's easy to scare somebody. It's easy to pull a gun on somebody. It's easy to dominate with fear. He's like, try going to work every day. He's like, that's the real hero. That's the working man is the real tough guy.
Yeah.
And I absolutely believe that and think that. And I think that you can have that attitude that I'm going to do the best job I can at this. Mm-hmm. Even if am never going to make more money at this, I'm going to be a better bus driver 5 years from now than I was this year.
Right.
Or whatever it is, teaching or anything. And I think that there's something really noble about being able to keep that mindset when it's hard to see it, when you're not getting the immediacy, the immediacy of the results and the work that you put in. Mm-hmm. I want to backtrack here for a second, and then I want to go back talking to more specifically about the work you do.
Okay.
But we've bonded and talked a lot about, this idea. I don't know what else to call it, but like kind of earning your way into a space with hard work, or enduring some hazing, or just having to prove yourself to folks that have amassed a skill set. And then I think we both see a lot of value in that, and then we both also understand that can often enter a place of toxicity. And
oh yeah, it's a fine line.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people, I think they trip back and forth over that line a lot. Mm-hmm. And without like exposing any of the folks that you like worked with that you have a tremendous amount of respect for. I'm really always struck with how much respect you have for the dude you worked with at your family's shop. Mm-hmm. But I mean, maybe let's discuss that a little bit. How, like, where do you see that line, and where do you kind of try to emulate the aspects of it that you see as useful, and then step away from the stuff that can enter a more damaging space?
Like that.
You burning. Like, remember talking about like you burning your eyes?
Oh yeah. So with welding, you can get what's called flash burn, where the light of a weld, the light that's created from welding is so bright that you have to shield your eyes from it with a really dark lens. And if your bare eyes get exposed to that light, you can burn your eyeballs. Mm-hmm. And it's a horrible, horrible, horrible pain that I would wish on no one.
Just no relief from it.
No relief from it. Your eyes heal quickly, so you're dealing with it for you're dealing with that initial pain for 12 hours, but then it just feels like you have sand in your eyes for a few days. But that initial pain, it feels like you got glass in them, and you can't close them for comfort. You can't open them because they're incredibly sensitive to light. So anyway, we don't need to get into all that. But I've had that happen twice, and the first time it happened was in industry, and was working with a guy who I was kind of eyeballing. We were working on this big granite shaker, which basically shakes down granite to different sizes and separates those sizes.
Kind of like a giant gold pan or something.
Yeah, and it's like, a big, massive kind of box-looking deal on huge springs that allow it to shake. And we were lining all these bars up that made a certain like a bracing for a screen, and there's a bunch of lines. So this guy I'm working with is a bunch of bars. I mean, this guy I'm working with is in the back of this shaker, and I'm on the front end wrestling these bars into place on these lines we've popped. And my job is to get it in line and then say, all right, it's good, and he tacks it. Well, he's jumping the gun and keeps tacking it when I'm still looking to line everything up. This probably makes no sense to anyone listening, but you get the idea. I see him. He flashes me so much that day. That sounds kind of creepy. I get so many flashes of his weld from that day, and I remember I went home, didn't think anything of it, and then I was driving up Cantrell Hill in Little Rock.
Yeah.
The sun's coming down, and my eyes started watering, and I was like, oh, man, that's weird. Still didn't really think anything of it, and then I woke up in the middle of the night just, terrified. Thought I was blind,
Wow.
Yeah, I didn't know what was going on, and somehow I managed to, grab my phone, and I thought of my uncle's the letter in his first name, and I knew, where my phone icon to call people was on my phone. So located that on my phone, opened my eyes real quick, pressed it, and then I knew, well, B, my uncle's name starts with a B. Let me find we're going to be at the top,
Mm-hmm.
So I got there, open him up real quick, call him. I woke him up, and he's just I'm panicked, I don't know what's up with my eyes. I can't open them, I can't close them, blah, blah. And he's just kind of said, he was very sympathetic. And then he kind of said, well, I mean, it's just kind of something you got to deal with.
Yeah.
You're going to have a long night. And he's right. And so I had a long night, and then by the morning they start feeling better. So since I had called him, I felt okay, maybe not showing up to work quite on time.
Mm-hmm.
I showed up an hour or so late, and my eyes are swollen, and the guy the word had gotten around the shop, because it's high school.
Yeah.
And there were some guys in there.
The old young pups got initiated.
Yeah, there was some guys in there who, I work with I'd probably been working there for 3 years at that point, 4 years at that point. And, some of those guys come ask you how you're doing, and other guys kind of tease you. And then the guy who burned me, I don't really regret this, but the guy who burned my eyes tried to tease me about it, and I kind of flipped,
Yeah.
And that's
because you were hurting.
I was hurt, man. I was hurt. I was bad hurt. And I get it if I do something stupid and bust my thumb or something, you kind of deserve to get teased when you get a little injury that's not bad from something stupid you've done, but
in that case, he had kind of failed to fulfill his role of mentorship.
We were working together.
Yeah.
And he was kind of overriding me. And that's what caused my eyes to get. This story's probably gone on too long, but I guess with drawing the line, like, and that, well, maybe what we're getting at is like navigating that environment when you step into it. Like I stepped in as a college boy, that's what they saw, a college boy, and I got teased because I picked on and made fun of starting out by a few guys who. I want to preface all this by saying, like, these are guys I still keep in touch with today.
Mm-hmm.
When I see them, they smile. When I show up, they're laughing and smiling. We have a good time, and I care deeply about these folks. But, and I'm invested in trying to get better at that work. So we'd be making like a big ass vessel in the shop that's like 20-foot diameter and 60 feet long, and I'd kind of be staring at it, mesmerized by it, because it's just this massive thing, and guy who's building it would be like, "I didn't teach you how to make that in college? They didn't teach you that, huh?"
Yeah.
And I'm kind of like, yeah, they didn't, but you can teach me. Like, I would love to learn from you, And I think there's this dance of like sincere kindness, respect for what they're doing, and then knowing when you need to be firm and knowing when to say, ideally you could say, "All right, man, I've had enough. Can you quit messing with me?"
Yeah, but that's not how it goes. You got to
bow
up a lot of times.
And I like, one of the guys I had issues with the first 6-7 months I worked with there, I feel like I finally got his respect by like just flipping out on him,
Yeah.
And I have kind of a habit of that anyway. Like I kind of suppress it until I can't, and then I lose it a little bit. And that's what happened in that situation. And his eyes got big as hell. And I think he probably wanted to see that from me,
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I think I think folks do, and but there's this element to it, like we talked about, where.
Well, can I interject?
Yeah, please.
There's also such an element, like you touched on very briefly, like there's some serious toxicity there, and there's this eagerness to be the most quote unquote masculine and like the toughest and the hardest and the I show no emotion when I burn my eyes.
Yeah.
It's just something that happened to me, and I've found that one of my favorite things about that shop was cutting through that bullshit and getting to the person.
Yeah.
And realizing this is a facade. This is a mask, and this is like you're comfortable in it. But like, you're crying to me now about how much you love your daughter.
Yeah.
And you do, the further removed I get from that, and this is such a ramble here, but like, I think there's a lot of masked pain by plenty of people who feel like they can't let that out. And in a way, my friendships with a lot of the guys I worked with, they developed a comfort with me where I think a tiny bit of that came out. Mm-hmm. I've seen my coworkers cry. Which like we're talking about like mostly 60 or 65, 55-year-old men.
Yeah.
And there's some weird purity in there, you know?
You're finding empathy for them, man, which is super important. Because
Yeah.
in a lot of ways, they're working with the tools they were given.
Exactly.
And the
Yeah.
tools they were allowed.
Mm-hmm.
And, yeah, man, this is actually a pretty righteous segue into the work you do, because, like, one of the things I like and respect about you so much is that, you know, in so many ways you are, you know, you'd be like kind of a traditionally like man's man. You like sports a lot.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you work a physical job. I respect that you're not a whiner, you know, because I have elements of that too, to where like you endure.
Mm-hmm.
Like part of my identity is wrapped up in enduring, and I'm trying to let some of that go. Actually, you know, largely motivated by my children and my family, because I'm seeing that that's there's a difference between always enduring and developing resiliency, you know?
Yeah.
And I respect so much that you have these elements, these things that I appreciate, this tactile form to your daily life. But, you know, we've also spent a lot of time the last few days talking about your investment in this artistic community. And, and please don't take this as, I actually find a lot of joy in finding, like, making this realization about you, but I don't think that I don't think I fully quantified you as an artist.
Oh, I don't know that I fully quantify myself. I struggle with that.
No, man, like you have it. It's the approach that you're bringing to stuff. That's where the artistry is. You know what I mean? Like, and I've
Right.
talked about,
like Haas was saying, craft is active.
yeah. And man, I like so appreciate it. And I have a lot of admiration for it too.
Oh, thanks, Jonathan.
And man, you know, and especially because our relationship there's so much ribbing back and forth with each other. It's, you know, it is kind of weird to say this, but so what am I? Am I 4 years older than you? 3, 4?
You're like, what, 46?
Man, dude, I almost said something to you, man, about your family.
No, you're 39.
38.
Yeah, you're a little less than 4 years older than me.
Yeah. And because I met you when there's such like a big gap between like 17 and 20. When I met you, I think I always have kind of had this, there's like a slight little brother
Oh yeah.
motif to it. And it's so joyful to move. And I've always respected you, but to move past that to like really having admiration for somebody. And I feel like that's kind of fully got encompassed in this weekend, and like really see how you work and see what you do, how you live your life,
Yeah.
seeing your home. Like, and I told you when we were having lunch the other day, you know, most of the people that I associate with, they don't do anything in their house as far as, you know, if their water heater breaks, they call a plumber. If they got to put a sink in, they call a plumber. If, you know, they're not going to paint the exterior of their house. They're not going to patch a hole in the roof. They're not going to install cabinets. And I do that, you know, one, it's kind of a way for me to bring value to my family by not having to pay other people, you know, so it's kind of like an economic thing, but it's also a pride thing. And going into your house and seeing all the structural stuff you've done, and then also seeing like how intentionally it's put together, what's hanging on the walls. Man, dude, and I said this to you earlier, but man, I'm just so proud of you. Like
Oh, thanks, Jonathan.
you really turn into like just a hell of a man.
Oh,
and
thanks.
I won't say these nice things about you ever again. But yeah, man. So let's kind of move. Let's talk about your artistry and like let's talk about your house. Like you're very mindfully consuming from other artists and then displaying that work, and you've got like an ethos behind that.
Right. Well, at the gist of it is that I make sculpture. I'm a part of a community of craftspeople, artists, and in order to make a living, I have to sell my work. And I think I just put it as simply to you as like, I got to put my money where my mouth is, you know? And so I want to support other artists that I admire. I want to have their work in my home. I want to drink my coffee from a handmade mug, be it someone I know or someone I don't know. It's kind of crazy how far just that experience alone can go for you. Like all the cups that my partner Laura and I, who's a jeweler, Laura Wood, all the plateware, all the cups we use in our home are handmade. We have work on the walls that we love and are happy to have, and that's all intentional because we like it, but it's also, there's the intention of supporting people in our field as well. I think you see that a lot in the craft world. You see a lot of folks who are very invested in each other and each other's practices and supportive of each other and each other's practices. And that's certainly not an endeavor I've taken on alone. Like Laura has been instrumental in so much of my growth as an artist and a craftsperson and a self-employed business owner, you know, and has really helped me kind of define how I want to approach my life as that. And she's been doing this longer than I have, so I've gotten to like watch the decisions she makes and watch how she navigates her world and how she navigates her job. And so like I got to give her a ton of credit for all of that. But yeah, I think it's just living with intention and caring about not just what I do in the field, but what everyone is doing in the field to a degree.
Yeah, I think you're trying to talk about like living out a value structure that you've created for yourself. Man, this is a little bit awkward of a transition, but why is there value in art to you?
Oh, that's a good question. Man, I wish you would have warned me about this.
Gotcha.
Well, my work is a reflection of where I've come from, in the sense that I learned the steel trade at my family's business. My uncle learned the steel trade at my family's business. His dad learned the steel trade at my family's business. That would be my grandfather. My grandfather's dad learned the steel trade at my family's business. My great-great-grandfather started the business. So generations pass, and there's people in our family from each generation who are learning the trade there. But I'm the first one of the family to take those skills and take ownership of them in my own way. And so for me, art is that. Art is honoring that tradition, honoring my family, in a way, highlighting like, I think it's amazing that my great-great-grandfather started this shop and it's still going. It's like one of the 10 oldest businesses in Arkansas. And that's the root of everything I do. Now, that doesn't mean that everything I make is like, what's this work about? Oh, it's about a steel shop.
Dude, I love I love those impersonations.
It's not that. It's that, like, I have such a, I hold that place in such high regard, and I want, honestly, man, like, a lot of it stems from, like, I want to make my family proud. You know? When I left, it was like, and if anyone in my family ever listens to this, like, forgive me if I'm wrong, but it felt kind of like, what the hell are you doing? You know?
Yeah.
And now it's more like, when I go back to Arkansas, it's like, hey, what are you doing? What you been up to? You know, let's see it.
Dude, that transition is incredibly validating.
It is, and it's comparable. It's comparable to that moment where, when I first started at the shop, and, you know, a year in maybe, I was like, all right, I got these dudes' respect. It's come. I can feel it, you know, and we can get all this other shit out of the way, and we can work, and through that work, we're gonna get to know each other, and, like, I'm a caring, compassionate person, so I'm gonna, like, I've got an in. I'm gonna get what I'm gonna, like, I want you to open up, you know? Like, it was honestly, like, kind of a little challenge I made for myself. Like, we're not gonna have this surface bullshit. Like, it might be like that, you know, 70% of the time, but I'm gonna tap into you.
We're gonna get to the marrow.
Yeah, like, you and I openly have this friendship, you know?
Sure, yeah.
You tell me things that you probably don't tell a lot of people. I tell you things that I probably don't tell a lot of people. And, like, that's what I want. Like I said, I don't like half-assing shit, you know?
Man, oh boy, you brought it full circle.
So
Wonderfully.
And I think that, you know, you can get burned by that, but, like, you have to allow yourself
the space to experience and broadcast vulnerability.
Yeah, and, like, plenty of times you're going to get let down by that approach, but I'd rather live my life that way than like, I can't half-ass it, you know.
Hey, dude, I so identify with everything you've said in the last 5 minutes, and it's, you know, I kind of told you this before, but so, I mean, you're talking about, like, existing on this scale, and this is something that's very important and resonant to me, existing on the scale of continuum, and then kind of like in your own life trying to exhibit some form of propulsion. Mm-hmm. Right? Like propulsion for yourself. Propulsion.
These are all words out of your old songs,
Yeah,
John.
yeah. Man, God, we've known each other a long time. And, like, you know, propelling, you know, truthfully, society in some way. And, you know, I come out of this, like, you know, my mom was a college professor. My dad was an educator. My sister's has a doctorate in education, and she's an educator. My older sister's a lawyer. And that's kind of like my family's, that's kind of like their legacy. And then, you know, they sent me to Arkansas to go to this, you know, well-respected liberal arts school. And here I am 20 years later, and, you know, I get attention for cooking raccoons.
Yeah.
You know, and it's, like, especially with my dad, and it's a weird thing to admit, but, like, my father, I always felt my father loved me. I think there was a large time period in my adult life where my father did not understand what I was doing, and I think that he would not have said he was proud of me, you know. And when he lived with me, for those few months, and then eventually he got sick and passed away. And it's, he was an old school dude, man, and he couldn't say this to me, but he said it to like my mom and my sisters and my wife's because he knew it would get disseminated to me.
Mm-hmm.
But he said, I've always wondered what he was doing.
Mm-hmm.
I never understood what he was doing. And now I think I do.
Yeah.
And I think it was because, he moved in that house with me. He saw that I did all that work myself.
Yeah.
He saw that he really appreciated that, like, I worked hard.
Yeah.
Like he told my mom, that boy works his ass off.
Yeah.
That's like one of the proudest moments of my life.
Right.
And I think too, like there was a sense, it was this weird transition where I think there was a little bit of admiration even, and I think that's what you're talking about with your family and those dudes you worked with, to where, part of the reason I'm so aggressively myself and so intentional in the way I live is because those are things that my father instilled in me.
Yeah.
And I think in some ways he never fully realized. And so seeing some of that realization through, like, his child was, or just someone he had a part in.
Mm-hmm.
I think he recognized where some of that came from.
Oh, I'm sure.
And yeah, man, like talking about going back, when you go back to Arkansas and go back to that shop, and that there's like a genuine interest in what you're doing, I think that there's a level of admiration for it. And like the show you're going to do in Memphis this spring, and one of the first things you told me about it, you're like, man, that's 2 hours from Little Rock. Like
I gotta bring it.
Yeah, my uncle's going to come to that.
Yeah.
I
hope.
You better show up.
I imagine so.
Man, real quick, because we are kind of like getting into like, trying to keep it around an hour, but man, maybe spend just a few minutes describing your work to people, and then we'll let people know how they can go and see it. It's and I told you the other day, man, I remember like the first time you made this like little metal rose.
Oh,
and I saw it in the bar.
Yeah.
And I even remember, and I almost don't want to admit this, but it goes with what we've been talking about. This was, shit, man, it was like 12 years ago or something. But I think I even remember being like, I don't want to say irked, but I thought it was maybe like a little bit precious, which we've talked a lot about how I'm really against stuff being precious.
Mm-hmm.
And seeing,
there's a lot of beauty in precious things, Jonathan.
Well, you know what I'm talking about, man.
I know exactly.
I'm talking about, by precious, I'm really talking about stuff being performative and not based in intentionality.
Yeah.
And I think maybe I misinterpreted that a little bit, and I do think too, and we've talked about this a little bit, I think there was maybe even a slight bit of rivalry between us, with being the guys who worked with their hands. But man, like seeing where that started, and then seeing what you create now, and how like you have a breadth of work after this many years. Like I think you have a very recognizable style. I'm probably not as educated on artistry and this space as other people, but like it seems like you have a very recognizable style. You have reasons for doing everything the way that you're doing, and it exists on this familial continuum that I think is incredibly cool and incredibly righteous. So maybe just describe a little bit like the work you're doing, and then we'll tell people how they can go see more of it.
Yeah, so no one will ever see that little flower I made.
Do you still have it?
I have no clue where that is. Maybe my mom and dad have it or something, but that was a jumping point for me. I think I got on YouTube and like looked for like how to do some like little sheet metal forming things to make a flower, and at the time it just made sense to like try something, and taking raw materials and turning it into something is in a way it was kind of liberating from the grind of industrial work, and there's this moment where I did, I think, realize, as shitty as that thing was, like, I'm capable of turning this into something more than just industrial application. And
you feel like you fully became a creator?
No, not at that point. I think I realized potential to be that.
Yeah.
And it was just curiosity that kept me making stuff I would never show anyone today, you know? But there's value in that work for me, because, like, thinking about that now, I'm like, I didn't have to do that during my lunch break, you know? I didn't have to stay after work and do that, but I wanted to. And that's, I think, like, the root of, I think that's what got you doing what you're doing.
Yeah.
Initially, it's a curiosity, and then it morphs into something more than that. And then from there, it pivots into, maybe this can be a living, and then you work towards making it a living, and then you're working towards how to evolve it, how to progress it. Anyway, the work I make now, I make primarily sculpture. I do fabrication work that is more reliant on kind of design and not fab work that's quick and dirty. It's always fabrication work that needs to be super tidy, to tight tolerances. And honestly, a lot of the fabrication work I do is for other artists in different mediums. You know, I have a close friend who I make angle iron frames for. And she's a glass blower. And those frames then encase basically her glass work so that they can be hung on the wall. So my goal with that is for that frame to disappear. You know, it shouldn't stand out, but if you're looking at it, it better be tight.
Yeah.
But my own personal work is really reliant on industrial processes that I was exposed to when I was working for my family. I use a lot of the last 2 or 3 years I've been making a body of work called broken volumes that are faceted tubing forms that I make from flat sheet. I bend them so they have the tube has 12 flat surfaces that are created by bends, and then I take that tube and manipulate it into a new form. And there's a handful of processes in there that are I stumbled on this work by relying on those processes, trying things out. How did we make a cone at my family's shop? Well, a lot of times we'd have a cone pattern and bend it along very particular lines to then make that flat sheet turn into a cone. And I just spin in my process thinking about how did we create something in that shop? What was the process? And then I take those processes, try to take ownership of them in a way that they haven't been expressed in that shop before. Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure.
Again, like making this skill set my own, having control over how I use those applications. But so my like aesthetically, I think you'd see industry in my work as well. I hope you will. If not, then I feel like I might not be doing it right. But I'm confident anyone who looks at it will at least be able to notice, like, maybe this guy might have a background in steel fabrication, you know?
Yeah.
That's the work I've been making predominantly the last 3 years or so. I made a series of work that was vessels and containers 4 or 5 years ago, and that work stemmed from again, like, processes in my family's business, but I started making these boxes with mechanism and hinges, and it became, for me, it was about the interaction with that box. And we'll have to post a link to this stuff because it probably sounds so foreign. But I was making these boxes out of steel that you had to interact with to open and close. They have mechanism, and that work stemmed from, unfortunately, a pretty rough patch in my life where my Uncle Richard, who I worked with at my family's business, he got sick with pancreatic cancer shortly after I moved to North Carolina, and he went like that, man. He died really quickly, and Richard, more than anyone, I think I can point to as like as like my gateway into this. He really kind of took me under his wing when I started, and was like protective of me, and taught me in his own kind of stubborn, quiet way. And I just developed this amazing friendship with him. And when he died, my uncle and my mother, my other two uncles and my mother, asked me to make a box for his ashes. And so I made a very utilitarian box, lid screwed on, but I also helped put his ashes in there. And when I was doing that, it was like I was in that thing, opening it, closing it, thinking about this man, slowing everything around me was like, came to a halt, you know? And it was like this moment with that box, and I saw it in my mom, I saw it in my uncle, and that was like the first time I think they understood, not my mother, but my uncles, my other uncles and family members, like, it clicked what I was trying to do. And so I came back to North Carolina, and that like drove my work for a few years. I was making these containers that played off of that, where if you saw one in front of you, it's not going to strike up all this emotion and all these, like, I look back at that work and I'm like, oh man, you were in a rough spot making that work. But if you saw it today, you'd be intrigued by it, and you'd mess with it, and you'd try to open it, you know, and it, whether that's a 20-second experience or a 60-second experience, that's kind of all you're thinking about at that point, you know? Does that make sense?
Yeah, no.
And there was
I get
like,
it, man.
there was like a real peacefulness to that moment of all of us putting those ashes in that box. And I felt like my ability to make that box was kind of like, to use a pun, a vessel for those feelings, you know? Like, it allowed all of us to experience that moment together, instead of throwing him in a box from the funeral home that had a fucking bald eagle on it, you know? It's like, it's a box that Richard's nephew, who he loved, made with sweat and concern and care. You know what I mean?
Yeah, man, it's That's powerful shit, dog.
And so I chased that for a few years in my work. And that was like, I think in a way that was like a morning for me. You know?
Yeah. No, I get it, dude.
A way to deal with that morning. Sorry, I didn't mean to take it that far, but it's funny because I've looked back at that work quite a bit recently, and I see all these things now that I maybe didn't quite see while I was doing it. You know?
Yeah, man, Thomas, I love it about you. I really do. And yeah, man, like, thanks for having the moment.
Of course, yeah.
Anyway, go eat some beef jerky. Well, look, man, dude, I am absolutely enamored with this smoker that you've made, and like it's
great.
Talking about vessels
and
all of this intention, and how like this is going to be something where like I'm going to go into the world, I'm going to test my merit in the woods, I'm going to find myself, I'm going to come back, you know, after having, as I've said before, snuffed out sentience in a very intentional and reverent way. And then I'm going to cook it in this intentional way with a lot of time, and I'm going to think about you when I do it, and all these different combined elements. And like I said, you know, no one gives wild game that they've procured themselves to people that aren't important to them. You only share it with friends and family. So like you have created another vessel for that continuum of experience and family, and, you know, me to express, you know, my craft to the world. So
right. Yeah, that's great.
I so appreciate it. And I appreciate your willingness to like have me here and have me in your home. And yeah. So anyway, man, if we haven't run everybody off with all these feelings and stuff, where could people find you and follow you and take a look at your work?
Yeah,
and also buy some of it.
My website is thomascampbellcraft.com. ThomasCampbell, craft like Campbell like the soup, Thomas like the English muffins. And I have an Instagram account as well. That's Thomas underscore, I guess that's what you call it, Campbell. You can find me there. Website has most of the work I've made throughout my practice, and Instagram is some finished work and process, and you know, me celebrating when my favorite sports teams win.
Yeah.
Don't judge me.
I will absolutely judge you and continue to let you know. All right, man. Well, dude, thanks.
Of course.
Thanks seriously so much, man. I've had a really, really awesome time, man, and I'm super stoked and proud to take this back to Arkansas and share it with people.
Yeah. I can't wait to get down there and eat something that comes out of it.
Yeah, maybe call me first, and I'll see if I've got time, man. All right. Well, yeah. Until next time. Thanks very much, bud.
Yep.
Thank you so much again for listening to the Black Duck Revival podcast. If you're enjoying what you're listening to, if you want other people to know about it, I certainly do. It would mean so much if you take a minute, leave a positive review, maybe even take a second or two out of your day and write a review. That helps so much as far as algorithm stuff and trying to get more people listening to the podcast. As always, this podcast is produced by me, Jonathan Wilkins, and Brian Sachs. The title track music is from Dr. Bionic of Cincinnati, Ohio. And also, as always, if you want to know what's going on at Black Duck Revival, if you want to come visit, maybe have one of our experiences, please look me up at blackduckrevival.com. We'll be releasing new hunt dates as well as fishing trip dates, probably at the end of February, beginning of March, something like that. So if you're interested, check back in around then. Also, if you just want to keep up with me in kind of more of a daily way, please follow me on Instagram. That's blackduckrevival.com. I'm posting food stuff, hunting stuff, podcast stuff, Black Duck stuff. So thank you for joining me. I hope you enjoyed this, and we will see you next time.